anyone who wishes
decision.
to speak in opposition? Gentleman at this microphone.
Vincent DeVito, Massachusetts. I rise in opposition to this particular amendment. It's difficult to get into the minutia, try and anticipate every single action that's going to happen at a meeting preceding another meeting. So the folks that are running the preceding meeting need flexibility to do what they have to do. They cannot be under artificial time constraints. So
There we go.
this motion is not only impractical and also, to respond to the prior gentleman that just spoke, it does not say no notice. So I'm in opposition to this.
Right. Is there anyone who would like to speak in support?
Yeah, people are lazy. They just don't want to read right when they get notice. They want to do it on their time.
This gentleman at the front microphone.
Yes, my name is Jim Crawford from Maryland.
I'm sure they get at
I'd like
least
to make a motion that we amend
six
this
hours notice,
to
maybe
period
more.
24 hours to 12 hours. I think this, none of us, all of us have been in a meeting at some time, whether when you get handed something instantly, you're supposed to vote on it without any real time to consider. So we just changed it to 12 hours. Perhaps that would satisfy Mr. Ryder's concern. Thank you.
Okay, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
So yes, being flexible.
There's
on the
been a
spot.
motion and a second to change this from 24 hours to 12 hours. Is there anyone
That's
who would
plenty
like to
of time.
speak in
That is
opposition?
plenty of time.
Mr. Evans.
Yes. So I think maybe just be helpful to talk a little bit about how our RNC meetings work, because I think there are many who aren't on the RNC. But it is the most open process you could possibly imagine. We have meetings constantly. We have a members-only breakfast where we talk about any issue that's going to come up.
And he wants grits.
All of the various resolutions and rules meetings are open. The Rules Committee meets the Thursday before the Friday morning session. And as you can see just how long it took us this morning to get all of our ducks in a row on getting rules together, it's not the kind of thing that you can just snap your finger and make it happen. Now, fortunately, technology has enabled us to make sure that when folks come in on Friday morning, remember the meeting, the RNC meeting starts typically at 10 a.m. When folks come in on Friday morning, there's a stack that's put right there in front of them, and they have the opportunity to take a look at them. There's only 168 of us, and we know each other. And so literally, if I have a question about resolutions, I'll go over to Carolyn. If I've got a question about rules, I'll go over to Bruce. It's a very collegial, collaborative process. And so the idea that you would try to analogize this to the U.S. Congress, which is that you must vote for it before you receive it, we are a far different creature than that. We are a creature where we talk it to death. Everybody knows well in advance.
Yeah.
And then you get a copy when you walk in, long before you're asked to vote for it. And then on top of that, we now have these beautiful devices called iPhones and Androids, which permit us to then send it out as well. So all of that happens. Now, if we then impose an hour limit or a minute limit, all we've done is introduce a whole other layer of bureaucracy, which is the one thing that we need less of. We actually need more of what we do. We talk to each other. And we need less of what this is, which is rules saying you must do this by then. As long as everybody's comfortable, and I've never heard anyone say they were asked to vote at an RNC
Expressing the
meeting,
First Amendment freely.
completely blindsided by. And the reasons because the meetings are so
Without being afraid of political
so I would
correctness.
urge opposition to both the motion to amend and the main motion.
Good.
Right. Is there anyone who would like to speak in
Good job,
support of the motion to amend? Mr. Ash.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Bruce Ash, Arizona, speaking in support of the amendment because it is a reasonable variation on the original proposal. There seems to be some concern. Let me restate that.
It's all right, Ash.
There
Take
seems
your
to
time.
be some chatter.
It's hard for you to think off
somehow
the
tied to
fly,
our current
top of your head, you know?
Our current
Alright, take it
chairman's
easy.
doing a great job.
Yeah.
Staff does a great job. They work hard. This is a member's chairman. We all recognize that. But I think those of you who have been around for a few years remember it wasn't always so. In fact, we had to pass a motion for a resolution for good governance. And it wasn't that long ago. It was 2012. When things weren't going so well, when things weren't being presented to members of the committee, and when things were happening that blindsided our members. This is not about the current chairman because the current chairman may or may not be the chairman in the future. We need to protect the members of the RNC. This is a membership protection. And for my fellow members of the RNC who are here today, just think back about 2011 and think about the constant problems that we had with the chairman's office and getting the information and the tirades that we received. This is meant to be as good governance for our committee to keep us running the right way. And I am thankful that we have the great chairman that we've enjoyed now for almost 6 years. I want to make sure that all chairmen live up to that same standard. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else
Thank
who
God,
rises to
man.
speak in
Support.
opposition? Mr. Dupre.
Madam Chair, Steve Dupree from New Hampshire, just
Love you,
with
Ash, but
the
geez,
underlying
man.
fundamental motion, I don't think we need 12 hours or 24 hours. We elect our chairman. I urge everyone to vote no.
Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? You have not moved to a microphone and gotten recognition. Mr. Hammond.
Madam Chair, John Hammond, National Commitment from Indiana. I call for the previous question.
There has been a call for the previous question, and we will move directly
Thank you.
to a vote. All of those in favor of closing debate on this amendment to the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We will now move to voting on this amendment to the amendment to alter the words, the numerals 24 and insert 12. All of those in favor of this, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, please say nay. Nay. The nays
Majority.
have it.
Yep.
Now, we are back to the main motion. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in recognition, be recognized to speak on this amendment? Seeing none, we will move to the vote.
Thank you. Move to the
All
vote.
of those in favor of adoption of Amendment 8.1, please say aye. Anyone opposed,
Nay.
please say no. The noes have it.
Yep. There you go. Another one shut down.
All right, we have an additional
What's going
amendment
on?
Rule 8.
So,
No, we do not have any additional amendments on Rule
Which means,
8. We have no amendments that have
sorry,
been
see,
submitted on
Maybe
Rule
my
9.
so
This is
basically,
the
they shut
staff
down
for
Parliament
looking.
to try to overthrow Donald
So,
Trump, and
let's get
also
to
to give them a day to do
All right, the
research
first
before they
amendment
take
that
it
we
to
will
vote.
consider
That's all I need to
is
know.
amendment number 10.1.
Screw over.
Rule
Okay.
number 10 deals with committees of the Republican National Committee. The chair will recognize
I mean,
Mr.
this is
Ministeri for the
it's
purpose of
not
making a
live.
motion.
I did a
Thank you, Madam Chair.
beforehand, but oh, here it is. Here it
I'd
is.
like to propose adding a new rule, which would be labeled 10A11. The substance of that rule would be as follows. There shall be a temporary committee on the presidential nominating process to review the rules governing the nomination of the Republican Party's presidential nominee. The chairman of the Republican National Committee shall appoint all temporary members of the committee on the presidential nominating process not to exceed 11 members, and shall appoint one as chairman, and the chairman of the Republican National Committee shall serve as an ex officio member. The chairman of the Republican National Committee shall convene the committee on the presidential nominating process at his discretion, or could be her discretion, but we didn't put that there, but not later than June 30th, 2017. The committee on the presidential nominating process shall make any recommendations it deems appropriate and report such recommendations to the Republican National Committee no later than May 31st, 2018. The committee on the presidential nominating process shall disband following the transmittal of its report. Necessary and proper resources of the Republican National Committee shall be made available to fund the efforts of this committee. Madam Chairman, I would move the adoption of this as a new rule.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Mr. Ministeri, would you like to address the merits of your amendment?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would. Thank you. For those of you that don't know me, I was the 3-time elected chairman of the Texas Republican Party. During that time, I probably received more questions and comments and concerns from our grassroots members regarding the presidential nominating process, the timelines, how we pick our nominee, etc., than any other subject. Unfortunately, there has never been a consensus as to how to fix or improve the system. I would think that almost everybody here would agree that there are ways that we can improve the way that we pick our presidential nominee. But I think to get consensus, it's going to take a long time effort to get input from all the stakeholders, our grassroots, our elected officials, and give a great deal of thought and consideration to this. So my motion is designed to allow a process and a discussion to continue and proceed and hopefully reach recommendations so that we can improve our process in the future. I would point out that this commission does not have the power to adopt any changes. It's merely to get a discussion going so that hopefully it will culminate eventually in an improved process. Thank you for your time, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ministeri. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this amendment? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support? All right, we will move immediately to a vote on the amendment. All of those in favor of adding the proposed language that you see in front of you on a temporary committee on the presidential nominating process, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Wow. Wow.
Next, we will move to Amendment 10.2,
Wow.
Amendment 10.2, which impacts the language in Rule number 10B. 10B. It has been submitted by the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Ash. Mr. Ash, would you like to make a motion?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. Bruce Ash from Arizona. This would be to Rule 10B, page 20, line 22. It would add a new section that would just merely say, and I hope you will consider this for cleanup, all members of the standing committee shall be members of the Republican National Committee.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Would you like to address the merits, Mr. Ash?
Sure, just very quickly. This is just clarifying language. It's probably self-evident, but it doesn't hurt to be there.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the motion? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Anyone else who wishes to speak in support? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote.
Thank you.
All of those in favor of adopting the language in 10B to read, all members of the standing committees shall be members of the Republican National Committee, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we move to Rule 10.3. Mr. Ash, I have this down as being submitted by Mr. Blackwell of Virginia.
You're right. Sorry. I got
That's all right.
myself again. Pardon me.
That's all right.
This is live?
Is Mr. Blackwell here?
Well, it was.
Oh, here he comes.
Oh, okay.
Chair recognizes Mr. Blackwell for the purpose of a motion.
I think I got like 3 viewers right now to hear us talk.
He's just coming back to the top of the seating area. Mr. Blackwell? Mr. Blackwell? I believe it is your turn to submit a motion.
I like Blackwell. He's good. Yeah.
This is Amendment 10.3 to Rule Number 10A2 little ii.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I apologize for not being at my seat when my amendment came up. The National Convention in 1992 passed this provision that allows members of the Republican National Committee, notwithstanding whatever action the Resolutions Committee might make, to make a resolution in order to be considered on the floor of the National Committee. The provision as written says that such a process requires the written support of one member from at least 10 states. That has been part of our rules since 1992. It has caused no serious problems. It has been a means by which grassroots people from 10 states who were members of the National Committee could, if they wished, make a matter in a resolution in order to be considered. The Standing Committee on Rules put this amendment into the rules, and so it is before us today, that would require 2 members of the National Committee from at least 10 states. That's doubling the number of members required, but it is orders of magnitude more difficult to obtain. This has been a very useful provision for conservatives over the years, and it has angered some people for that reason. It is not a good idea to produce this amendment, which is essentially a gag rule against grassroots members being able to bring a matter up for discussion. And there is no danger whatsoever that there will be some extended debate that would be embarrassing, because a resolution, once it becomes on for discussion, is always subject to a motion to table, which is not debatable, and a matter can be tabled. But it would be very wrong to make it virtually impossible for a grassroots resolution to come before the National Committee unless the Resolutions Committee approved it. So I strongly urge everyone to vote for this. It restores what has been the rule here since 1992, and it's a good rule, and we don't need to centralize power further in our national rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. Is there someone who wishes to speak in opposition to the amendment? Mr. Feynman from Florida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Peter Feynman, State of Florida. Certainly, Mr. Blackwell overstates his case when he says this would amount to a gag rule. That kind of overheated rhetoric is certainly not necessary in this particular instance. Simply adding one extra person per state, which would be 2 out of the 3, and then only having 10 states out of the 50 to present a resolution is certainly not an unconstitutional burden or any kind of other burden in prohibiting a resolution to come before our body. We've done a lot of resolutions in my years here. They're all pretty good. And because they're all pretty good, they will all get support of 2 people from at least 10 states. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feynman. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? Mr. Yu from Oregon.
Thank you. Solomon Yu from Oregon. I support Morton's resolution for one simple reason. It is a good governance resolution. Actually, I'm the only one on this committee used. If you remember, Chairman Steele spent $1 million of our line of credit for Tampa 2000 convention, and without supervision of RNC Executive Committee. I got 10 signatures and passed that resolution because Chairman controlled the RNC Resolution Committee, and that is a bypass resolution, a bypass procedure, and allow us to take this one directly to 168 members. With member support, I led RNC executive efforts to investigate and report the results to the entire committee. For that reason, Chairman Steele could only get 45 votes for his re-election, and Reince Priebus got elected. So I am supporting this resolution for good governance purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Gentleman from Illinois.
Demetra DeMonte, National Committee Woman, Illinois. I would actually like to offer an amendment to Mr. Blackwell's amendment.
That's in order.
I understand what Mr. Blackwell is talking about.
Excuse me, Demetra, I need you to make the motion,
Yes.
and then we'll get a second, and then I'd love to have you speak to it.
Yes, my motion would be that we would ask that one member from 20 states would be the bar to be presented directly to the floor.
All right, is there a second? There is a second.
Wow.
All right, now the lady would like to
Thank you.
continue.
Now, my reasoning for this, I understand what Mr. Blackwell and Mr. Yu are talking about. Getting two members from 10 states is truly difficult. Very, very difficult. We do represent the grassroots. Now, my recommendation would be to make the bar more difficult, and I do understand that. That's why my recommendation is one member from 20 states. That is a heck of a high bar, but if it's a truly good resolution, you will be able to get enough members to sign off on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to the amendment to the amendment?
Yes, Madam Chairman, solemnly, Oregon, I would like to speak in opposition.
Please proceed.
Again, I was the one trying to get those 10 signatures. It was very, very difficult. The reason is it's an election year. Chairman got absolute power. He can decide which state he's going to open victory office, how much money he's going to spend. You think when you have 20 states all want RNC money to open victory office and few staff members, and any member were there to stand up for a good governance resolution again? Answer no. But I have no problem Chairman Priebus the way he runs this committee. However, whatever we do, we need to think about institutionalize what we do. And not for this committee, not for this administration, for future committee. That also is a concept for checks and balance within our committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak in support of the amendment to the amendment? Anyone who wishes to speak in support of the amendment to the amendment? Seeing no one else who wishes to speak, we will move forward to a vote. Mr. Ryder.
I wish to speak against the amendment to the amendment.
Well, I thought that's what I said, but perhaps...
I thought you said for. I'm sorry, I may have misheard.
All right, my apologies.
John Ryder, Tennessee. I oppose the amendment to the amendment. In all of these matters, what we're dealing with, we've got a committee that is elected by region, not appointed by the chairman, not controlled by the chairman, elected by the regions of the RNC. And that committee is empowered to review the resolutions and report them out. So when you're talking about the procedure that's being debated here, it's a procedure that involves bypassing and defrocking the committee. And we simply don't need to do that. I oppose the amendment, and I oppose the amendment to the amendment, and I oppose the amendment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of the amendment to the amendment? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the amendment to the amendment? Mr. Dupree.
Madam Chairman, Steve Dupree from New Hampshire. I rise in opposition to the amendment and to the underlying amendment. The current rules work fine.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support of the amendment to the amendment?
Yes.
Mr. Blackwell.
Madam Chairman. The previous speaker said that the current rules work fine. The fact of the matter is that what we are proposing here is not currently part of the rules of the Republican Party. So how can one say that the rule really works fine? The truth of the matter is this original proposal is a solution for something that no one will admit what the problem is. The real problem is that occasionally conservatives want to raise some issue on the floor of the National Committee, and the chairman and the Resolutions Committee won't pass it out. And if 10 members from 10 different states sign on to a resolution, it can come up. No one has identified what the real problem is. What damages has this rule that's been in there since 1992 done? The only damage is that occasionally conservative resolutions, or in the case of what Solomon Yu did, an important investigation into what was generally understood to be an abuse, was made possible. I oppose the amendment because 20 is way more than twice as difficult to get as 10, and my friend Ms. DeMonte, I think, is mistaken in this. I urge that the amendment be defeated, the amendment to my amendment, that my amendment be passed. This is fundamental for the representation of conservative principles on a national committee that is not always sympathetic with discussion of conservative issues. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support of the amendment to the amendment? Anyone who wishes to speak in support of the amendment to the amendment? Anyone else who wishes to speak against the amendment to the amendment? Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Henry Barber from Mississippi. I do oppose this amendment that would change this to 20 states. Couple points. One, there's 168 members of the RNC, so to get 20 people to do something is a very low threshold. And one point, the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Blackwell, talked about conservatives, and then he talked about the chairman as if he's not a conservative. And I just want to clarify that we know our chairman and all the members of the RNC are conservatives. We don't agree on every particular issue, but what we do agree on is that we want to win elections, and we want to win elections with conservatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak regarding the amendment to the amendment? Yes, sir.
Vincent DeVito, rising against the amendment to the amendment, and I'm rising also against to the amendment. The reason is, it seems to me that regardless of everything that was said, there's also a procedural element afoot here, which is, as this has already been discussed in standing committee, this committee, and has been thoughtfully discussed, reasoned, and voted upon for a whole bunch of thoughts that we do not need to repeat today. But however, folks come to this committee for another bite at the apple. I would go, I'm against the amendment to the amendment, and I oppose the amendment.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be recognized with respect to the amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. This first vote will be on the amendment to the amendment. The amendment to the amendment would replace the word "to" with "one," but insert "from 20 states." All of those in favor of adopting the amendment to the amendment, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. The nays have it. We are back to the main motion. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support of Mr. Blackwell's amendment? Mr. Semenko.
No previous question? Okay. Going for three in a row there. Madam Chair, Norm Semenko from Idaho. I support this amendment. And I'm afraid I just was dangerously close to hearing a moment ago that this convention committee on rules has no role in reviewing what the standing committee did. I hope I heard that wrong. But I traveled here. I spent my resources to be here. I'm representing the state of Idaho here, and I know a lot of other people are in that position. And we have the right and the obligation to review all of these rules. And if we think, as on this one, some of us, that the RNC Standing Committee got it wrong, that they're raising the bar too high, that they're making it too difficult, and that's the word I heard a little while ago, we do want to make this more difficult, that we have the opportunity to argue the other way. And we started this proceeding by hearing about the rights of the minority to be heard, but the majority to make a decision.